Yeah, so basically, you're saying that the long-term implication of CBN's dividend ban on the Nigerian economy and the banking sector. So it has to do with um, it, the ban on dividend payout was just as a result of this forbearance communique that came out from CBN, that CBN released, and it has to do with regulation of the banks. And so it's sometime in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic, you know that a lot of the banks were hit, a lot of companies were hit, and so forbearance is more or less like the government trying to just relieve the banks of the strict regulations that the industry goes through on a by default. So they had to forbear the banks to be able to make sure, okay, they give out loans and just reduce the bottlenecks around disbursing loans and all that. So the framework, which was what was used in the past, just we can call it like a prudential guideline. The prudential guidelines to make sure they regulate the banks on how they disburse their loan, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. So a lot of the CRR, a lot of the initiatives put in place to be able to make sure they regulate the banks. Most of that most of those regulations were just reduced, and so the banks could give out loans to a lot more people during COVID. But now, what CBN is trying to do is that they're trying to make sure that the banks do not continue with that old guideline, old prudential guideline, and checkmating all the excesses in the banking sector. And so this is more or less like um, like you just tightening regulations one again, because it's been 5 years, and so any issue you've been going, any post COVID-19 issues, fiscal issues that any bank would be going through would have been dealt with, and so that's why you're seeing all this coming into play. And um, it's not a permanent thing. The ban on dividend is not permanent. It's just temporary ban on dividend. And what CBN is trying to ensure is to make sure that outflows from the bank is reduced, just to make sure they meet up with recapitalization. Remember that the deadline for recapitalization is this year, towards the ending of this year, and deadline for recapitalization is this year. And they need to make sure that they reduce the amount of outflow going out from each and every bank. Recapitalization is 500 billion, and so if banks will still partake in, if your forbearance, if you still have forbearance exposure, and you're still going to pay dividend, it might put the bank at risk. So it's for the good of the bank, but a lot of investors are scared. Whatever is happening in the capital market is just something that is normal. It's just something that would happen, uncertainty. And so investors will always want to keep their money and invest in where they feel is much more secure, and they don't want to play because all this is back and forth. It's just news. Stability will come back to the capital market. So the ban is temporary, the dividend payout ban, and stop. The CBN also said that the banks should stop paying bonuses, huge bonuses to the executives and all whatnot. So that's just that. For it's not it won't have a long term implication. Like I said, it's temporary, and I think everything will bounce back to normal. Okay, so I don't think it's going to increase fine. I don't think it's going to stifle innovation and growth. It's in my own opinion, I think that it's going to increase financial stability and also reduce risk taking by the banks. Because if you come to look at it, there's something that CBN also issued, which has to do with single obligo limits, and single obligo limits is more or less like this. So if I'm a bank and my net asset is say 50 million, and out of that net 50 million net asset that I have, I give 25 million to just one borrower, one customer. That means I'm exposing my entire asset, 50% of my entire asset to just one person, which puts me at a higher risk. So based on our based on the single obligo limits that we have, prudential guidelines that was issued by CBN, that of Nigeria is 20%. Any bank, you can give more than 20% of your net asset to one customer. Now, 20% of your net asset. I think that makes a lot of sense because you are reducing the exposure of a particular bank and to just one customer. So if that customer defaults on their loan, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to put that bank at risk. And so that's why we're seeing all of this playing out. And the single obligo limit is a great one. And so all of this, it's just to bring about financial stability, and it will reduce it will reduce risk taking by a lot of banks. And definitely you're seeing that the banks that have the highest exposure is Zenith. I think Zenith has about 23% or so, if I'm not mistaken. And the next is Access Corporation. Access also, the Fugis Bank. But GT and I think Stanbic IBTC have no forbearance exposure. And that gives you an idea as to what the sanity that CBN is trying to bring to the banking sector. As a matter of fact, I think that this ban would impact in Nigeria's attractiveness to foreign. That the ban would not, I beg your pardon, would not impact Nigeria's attractiveness of foreign investors. As a matter of fact, it's going to even attract foreign investors, because when you see the banks highly regulated, you know that your investment is safe in that economy. And I think it's a welcome development. It's not something that, but all of this is just these banks would be able to withstand all of this. Look at what happened. The 500 billion recapitalization. The bank said, okay, no problem. The windfall tax that the government brought to the banks, I think sometime last year, the banks, they said they're up to the tax, and so these banks have made a lot of truckload of money. So it's not it's just a walk in the park. Um, um, they'll definitely face it. They'll definitely come out strong. So regarding the steady fall of the naira, look at what has been happening. Um, I feel that this is the true value of the Nigerian naira. As a matter of fact, we've had enough of a lot of intervention. It's like how do I put it? It's like you are trying to. It's like you have a skin disease, and you feel that the way to sort out the issue regarding your skin disease is to wear makeup. It's only about a matter of time. You're still going to feel the pain. You need to address it from the bloodstream. And I think that's what we're seeing as regards the as regards everything happening from monetary policy point of view. But we need to see a lot of work coming from fiscal part of the economy. From monetary policy point of view, we're seeing the CBN governor doing everything to make sure they sanitize the Nigerian economy. But from fiscal side, we're not really seeing a lot coming in from that part of the economy. And to address the Nigerian naira, it just has a lot doing with. We need to start producing what we consume and start exporting some of our finished goods, not just raw materials. And if we see the Dangote refinery come to full operation, it should have a positive impact in our economy. And other aspects, we need to also diversify away from oil and also rejig some other parts of the economy, agri sector, other sectors. What are we exporting? What are we exporting? What value are we giving to other parts of the world that will make them bring in their foreign currencies to our economy? That's just the layman approach to this. Enough of all these technical jargons. If we don't have what the world needs, we're not going to have a strong currency. And so that's how we should look at it. And if we don't address this, all the sanity that the government is trying to bring into our economy to rejig it, it's just going to be dead on arrival. So we need to start exporting and producing what we consume and consume what we produce. That's the way to see it. That's just the way. If we don't do this, there is no magic that can happen. There is no amount of makeup, and that's why we're seeing it. We're seeing it in full glare. This is the real value of the Nigerian naira. It's been hovering around 1,400, 1,500, 1,600, 1,700. And this is what a lot of investors have been calling out for. We need stability. Stability over sharp volatility in our FX markets. If that volatility continues, we're not going to see a lot of investors coming. But if we know, okay, if the value of the naira is 1,700 to the dollar, then let it be. Let's continue with that. That's how we would be able to. That's just our fate. That's just our fate. And we're seeing a lot of the regulation. We're seeing the government saying they can't. No, they can't continue to intervene as regards FX, as regards foreign exchange in the Nigerian, and regarding our foreign exchange market. They can't continue to put shock, absorb the shock all the time, and that's why we now have a free float economy, and all this is happening. This is just the true state of our FX market, and it's quite unfortunate, but a lot needs to be done actually. We can't we This is what we need to do. We just can't solve this problem from just monetary policy point of view. We need to also look at it from the fiscal point of view. We need to look at it from the manufacturers. We need to look at it from all other economies. What are we doing to be able to address it? That's just the truth, the truth of the. So the Israel-Iran conflict will definitely affect the global economy. We're seeing that happening. What is the price of oil right now? It's hovered around. I think it went a little bit below $60 per barrel, and Iran, they're one of the major producers of oil. If you know, they are part of the OPEC nations, and whatever is happening there will definitely affect the price of oil. What do you think would happen? It will. Some analysts are saying that it's definitely going to have a positive impact it will have a ripple effect in the price of oil, because if it affects their supply, you know that if anything affects supply, then and demand remains constant, price will definitely increase. And so we should see the price of oil um, relatively get to the upside, because it's like a blessing in disguise for Nigeria. And like we always say, war is business. And so whatever happens in that part of the world, because obviously Iran is a major producer of oil, it will have a positive impact in the price of oil. And you know that we've had a lot of issues with our oil. It's falling short of our oil benchmark. Our oil benchmark was $75 per barrel, and it's falling short of our oil benchmark, and to the tune of $60. I think as of last month, it got to $59 or $58. And that means that we'll be running a very, very high budget deficit for 2025. And our oil benchmark 75, price of oil 60, meaning we have a deficit of about $15 for each barrel. And so we either increase our supply. If we don't increase our production, production is still around 1.5, 1.8. And remember that based on 2025 benchmark, production benchmark was 2 million barrels per day. And so we either have to increase our production capacity to 2.5 million barrel if we know that we want to we need, if we know that we want to fund the 2025 budget, if we would love to fund the 2025 budget. But what is happening with the price of oil? Nigeria better be praying for more wars. It looks like it looks like I'm sounding evil, or like I'm sounding like a sadist, but that's the truth, the truth of the matter. If there's a lot of chaos in some of those oil producing nations, then we know that the price of oil should skyrocket, and it will be It's like a blessing in disguise to the Nigerian economy. But we shouldn't. I think that the world is too advanced for us to solely rely on oil for us to be able to fund our budget. We need to be able to look at other economies, other aspects of the economy, other industries to be able to fund our budgets. All right, Francis, thank you very much for having me on the show. It's been a great one, having a lot of conversation with you around the Nigerian economy. But what I would just say is that investors, retail investors, uh, institutional investors, just stay calm. Nothing really going to happen to the banking index of the NGX. While we're seeing a lot of decline in the market, I think the day it happened, the banking index dropped by almost 4%, 3.98%. And so um, it, it, the banks will definitely come out strong. Nothing is going to happen. It's just one of those prudential guidelines that the government is that the government is trying to use to sanitize the banking sector. Thank you very much for having me, Francis. Cheers.